Crikey, it's only another episode of Stag. If you like this kind of stuff, if you don't, can't turn it off. If you want to comment, down below the video. I think you have to use your computer, although you can use the telly. I don't know. If you want to contact me, it's Church House Classics. It's not it's Church House Classics, all one word, at gmail.com. You should have got it by now. It's in the description above, in the YouTube video and stuff like that. Anyway, fancy buying me a pint or supporting the channel? You don't have to buy me a pint. You can support the channel. There's a PayPal me link thing scrolling down here. There is no obligation. I'm grateful for every single person that has supported the channel, and I thank every one of you personally. So enjoy the video. Get Lampy McLamp face. Oh yes. This light up here is out. I need to fix it. But basically, new battery's gone in. It's a Type 072 battery from Halford, so it's an HP 072. Don't rely on the numbers, because the numbers don't translate from one manufacturer to another. It's got a 3-year guarantee. It was good value. It fit in. The old battery, as I mentioned before, was shagged. Don't worry about the washer bottle being there. It's because I've got all the plugs out. The power steering pump is not a Stag item. The bracket is. I don't know where it's come from. It's not Stag. I suspect someone bought it because it looked like a Stag one, then mounted it and thought, ah, bollocks, and went with it. Right, so I'm preparing myself now for an ignition compression check. So ignition compression check. What on earth are you talking about, Richard? Every single plug that's come out is sooty as fuck. They really are kind of. It's running very, very, very rich. They're also soaking wet. So when it last ran, it was running very, very, very rich. So I'm inclined to actually get this thing running properly. And then, ooh, what is all that crap coming out of that plug hole down there? That better not be oil. That's a worry, isn't it? Didn't notice that before. I must look at my videos. I mean, obviously the Amoco Cadiz kind of slick that's going down the back of the engine is because of the missing half moon gasket. That's back in place now. I need to give it a good old gunk off. Now, I'm not going to be able to start up today because we still haven't got the handbrake levers for the back hubs. As soon as I've got those, I can fit the back hubs, drop it back onto the ground again, turn it around, because I really want the exhaust going out of the door when I'm tuning this up. I don't want to be filling the workshop up with carbon monoxide. It's not very sensible, Richard. Right. Now, everything else okay, looks in order around here. There's a little bit of coolant there, just there, on the end of my finger. I don't know why. It might be condensation that's dripped down the inside of the engine, because it has been quite moist recently, and there is a fair amount of moisture around and about. So, for instance, you look at the glass, it's all condensation. So, it could be that, or it could be one of these pipes up here is leaking. Now, none of the spark plugs was tight in any way. None of the spark plugs was anything over about 2 foot-pounds, which is a bit disappointing because they've actually got compression rings on them that when you do them up, the compression ring on the end there, that bit that you see wiggling around, that's supposed to compress and then seal the plugs as they heat up and cool down, etc., 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 and stop them walking out. There is a bit of an oil leak down here, but nowhere near as bad as it was on the other side, and I think this is probably more of a historic oil leak. We've got a couple of minor issues. If I put the torch on there, actually, that's quite a good place to do it. A couple of minor issues in that, oh yes, distributor cap. Now this is a piece of a rarity. It's actually a Lucas cap with Lucas written on it. Alas, it's fucked. It's well worn. I mean, all of those posts are absolutely shagged out. I mean, that I don't know when it's come from or whereabouts it's come from. It's also got a Lucas rotor, but the Lucas rotor seems to have survived nicely, so that's going to go back on. I've got a distributor doctor cap to go on. On here we've got a Petronics, no, not Petronics, a Neutronic, silly ass, Neutronic Piranha P8 ignition system. It's the same one I had on my Stag before I went down the Power Spark route and ended up with the Petronics mechanism. Now, this seems to have a similar problem to the one mine had, which is that the optic should slide on when you suck the vacuum advance. You should see that move. Now, if I suck, and I do, ain't moving. Now, I would expect the vacuum advance to be working at that sort of pressure. So I think what I'm going to do first of all is I am going to have to take the vacuum advance, or I might take the base plate off actually first of all, because it's possible that the optic is not even attached to the vacuum advance, and I'll go through that. We've got a Hokoki 5000 coil, which is fine. If it works, it's fine, don't worry about it. I just tend to avoid the brand spanking new coils, which often come from some far off location, other side of the world, northern hemisphere, and are actually made out of butter. The important thing with the coil on these things, by the way, is to make sure that they don't actually sit on the block, because obviously they go in an adjustable kind of bracket and you can slide them up and down. Some people think, oh yeah, I'll rest it down the block, that's nice. Yeah, they don't cool down very well when they're resting on the block. Because of that, the coil will tend to be quite short-lived. It will overheat very, very, very quickly. Right, that's enough chat. People have told me I chat too much on these videos. That's because I've got to do something to fill in the gaps, because I don't video everything. Now I'm a bit wheezy today because I've, for some reason, probably the pissing COVID, but also the dampness in the air, I've suddenly become asthmatic again, which is not fun. So it's not horrendous today. It's okay. I'm not nowhere near attack stage, so don't be, you know, calling out the medics for me. But I did have an attack the other day, which was not pleasant, and it's the first attack I've had in decades. And of course, you can't get hold of anyone anymore because everyone's been fucking furloughed. Marvellous people, though. Marvellous. Absolutely bloody marvellous. Right, let's put this in the boot where the rest of the stuff is. I've put all the air filter and everything in the boot just to really kind of keep it out of the way. Oh, look, the boot light's working. Now, does the boot light go off? This is always a good one. Yes, it does. Does it go off when we pull the boot lid down? I'm going to put my phone in there. Still on. I'll just put my phone in the boot on record and see if the boot light goes off. It is actually a more common than would be believed cause for problems that you might get. Yeah, it's me videoing. Silly ass. Right, okay, let's just go down here. We'll put it on record. There we are. We're closing the boot lid. We'll open the boot lid. We'll stop the recording. We'll play back the recording. What does it do? Now there's me. Again, pop it in the boot. There we go. Light. Yeah, light goes off. That's good news, isn't it? Right, okay, so we know that the boot lid light. Boot, light, lid, lid, light, light, lid, light, boot, lid working. I did actually have a problem with mine on my car, on the White Stag, in that this plunger here actually operates against a spring which is underneath the rear deck here, and they are prone to breaking off, and then when they break off, people put them back in with nuts and bolts, which is a great idea. Used hardened nuts and bolts, because mine came off at me, and honestly I ducked and it missed my head by some distance. Missed my head by some distance. And then what then happened was this arm wasn't going down, so it wasn't turning the boot light off. Yeah, so my boot light was on all the time. Drove down to France with my boot absolutely fucking rammed out with kid. When I got down there, my temp was almost on fire. So, be warned. It is an incandescent bulb. It's probably a useful bulb to replace for an LED, really, isn't it? The other bulb which can cause difficulties is the glove box bulb. Oh, now sometimes they have a bulb in here. Of course, it won't open, will it? Sometimes there's a bulb in here, but on the marked ones, it's there as well. And the switch needs attention, doesn't it? Just wiggling the switch. Yeah, so the glove box bulb, that's another thing that caused my battery to completely die. Now, what we're going to do for this compression check, I think, that door closes nicely, doesn't it? Yes. I need to sort out the trim. Apparently when the hardtop goes on, it buckles the trim on the passenger side. Oh, the other piece of good news is the brothers that are the great providers of Stag parts at not overly inflated prices, never knowingly underpriced, frequently advertise stuff as in stock. And I know we've gone through this situation, and I know the COVID is ravaging the world, and I know that the Brexit situation has caused all manner of problems with importing shit from the EU. I can't get the spring for the door catch, so I'm going to attempt to make something up, because basically they're giving me a date of like February, and this car's going to be long gone back with its owner before then, because I've got other cars to come in, and that is my priority really. From as soon as these two are done, that's the priority. I'm 2 weeks behind schedule on this one, because of my illness over Christmas. I've got to get on with you, Bob. Oh yes, I put old knackered dash top that came out of Haggis. I popped him in there to make him feel a little bit more at home, make him feel like a car. So really it's a case today of getting the compression checked, find out why the vacuum advance is not working. I'll get the ignition turned on and see if the carburetors are overflowing or not. I may need to take the carbs off. Plenty of videos on this channel about how to set the float levels, and also how to trim and tune these carburetors. I might go through end to end later on, perhaps tomorrow. Oh look, the missus has just turned up. Oh, where's Merlin? Hello, Jack. Stupid thing. Right. Back. Riveting, isn't it, folks? Riveting. Right. Looking for book face. Penny face. Try to open. And. Over. Bit. Sorry folks, set the bloody camera going. Right, okay, so we're looking inside the distributor. I've taken the base plate of the Piranha unit out. When you do that, you have to be very careful not to break the chopper plate, because these, okay, they're quite tough, but I have broken one myself. Now, the selection of screws that were holding it down, I mean, first of all, completely the wrong bloody washer. The washer's about 8 times the size it needs to be. All of this shit down here, I actually think it's grease. Quite why it's got that much grease down there, I don't know. It doesn't actually matter. The bad news for the distributor is that I'm still not able to get the vacuum advance to move. So I'm going to undo the 2 screws now. There's one there, and then the whole vacuum advance will come off. It wasn't, I must admit, I don't think it was actually connected to. There's the pin on the bottom of the optic. Let me just see if I can get it a little bit further out. There we are. So there's the pin on the bottom of the optic, and the idea is as the vacuum advance does its stuff, then this thing the whole optic moves on the base plate, yeah, and that moves nice and smoothly, so it's nowhere near as knackered as mine was. So that's encouraging. I'm just going to leave that there just carefully. So the mechanical advance is working. I can see that both bob weights are flying, and like I say, all of that shit in the bottom there actually looks to me like grease rather than rust. It wouldn't be rust because I think aside from the actual bob weights, nothing else in there is steel. I suppose the shaft is for now, but the body is aluminium. This is Storm Christoph, by the way. It's been amusing me most of the day, actually. Oh god, 15% battery left. It's kind of nowhere near as bad as it sounds underneath a metal bloody roof. Right, so let me get that vacuum advance off and I shall come back to you. And I'm also going to need to change the battery because the battery's only got 10% left. Oil change, gearbox fluid change, 4 litres I got out of the gearbox. Now, that is an anomaly, because when you guys look at the manual for the Borg-Warner 35, the BW35 automatic gearbox, it will say capacity 8 litres. And you're going to say, ah, well, I can only get 4 into it. Torque converter. Torque converter, which sits on the back of the engine on a flex plate, it is filled with fluid, and you cannot get it back out again, not easily. You have to flush and flush and flush and flush, and eventually it comes out. But generally, you have to take the torque converter off the engine and lay it flat if you want to empty it, which is why, if you're putting a refurb gearbox on, the people who refurb it more often than not, and they should, insist upon a refurbed and cleaned torque converter at the same time. So that was that. So I put 3.5 litres back in there, and that's up to the full mark on the dipstick. Now, obviously, some fluid could have drained out of the torque converter, but not a lot, maybe half a litre. So once the engine's back up and running, then I can check the fluid level on that. Gearbox oil is down here. It's actually not that bad. I mean, it's still got a fair amount of viscosity to it. You can see how it's clinging to the side of the bowl there. So yeah, I don't think it done many miles. Don't worry about the blackness of the oil too much. I mean, the oil that's in there was brand spanking new. I use this stuff. Comes from Classic Oils. Google them. Fuzz Townsend's Classic Oils. But this one is a 2050, correct spec for the car, but it's got the correct level of ZDDP on it. See the bottom line down there. Things like modern oils with detergents in them, or especially silicones, don't come with the correct levels of ZDDP, zinc, ppm, whatever, for classic engines. So, I mean, you could buy this stuff at £20. I think it's £20 for 5 litres. So I don't understand why you wouldn't. Run the Range Rover on that as well. I used to run the Range Rover on the blue oil that Halfords used to do. They did a 1540 full mineral oil, but they've stopped doing that. So Classic Oils, yeah, you're going to get a lot more business from me. The automatic gearbox fluid is TQF. So there's a lot of misunderstanding about automatic gearbox fluid on the Borg-Warner, and people think, oh yeah, Dextron 2, I'll lob that in there. Don't do that. Type F is actually a Ford Type F, I believe. I may be talking bollocks. That's just boilerplate, that. But the idea is, we're talking, that's just all the different engine oils. TQF, it is for Borg-Warner gearboxes. Works at about £10 a litre, so it's not the cheapest stuff in the world, but it's as cheap as other ATFs. Put the right stuff in it. If you put the Dextron stuff in there, you will cause problems. I had problems with my gearbox, and I think they were pretty much down to the fact I was lobbing Dextron in it for years. Right, okay. Vacuum advances out. That, I don't know what is going on in there. That is absolutely sea solid. It's almost like, I don't know. I don't know what it's almost like, but basically, if I put my gob around that, it feels like it wants to move, but I can't breathe through it, which is the normal kind of sign that they're fucked, because it means the diaphragm inside has died. But then also, I kind of do expect them to move. I should be able to move that back and forth. Oh, hang on a sec. It's just started to move. I'm going to put some lubricant in there. That is really tight. Right, okay, the other amusing thing that I've been working with, sparking plugs. The plugs of sparkiness. What have I done with the last one? It's not very good, is it, Richard? Yeah, preparation is 9/10 of the bloody film. Let's put these bits up here, because that's all to do with that. Alright, that's going to fuck me off. Sparky plugs. When you get them from the box, and these are BP5ES's, NGK plugs, when you get them out of the box, you've got to gap them. Because I think by standard, these things come at over 30 thou. I mean, honestly, that is... And I did check it, and one of the ones on the other side was 30 thou. It's ever so easy to gap these bloody things, it really is. I mean, all I do, clean up the crap on the edge of it. Just literally just bounce it on the bench under the weight of the plug until not far off there. One more bounce, I reckon. You don't have to tap it, you don't have to bang it. Might have gone too far, that one. No. Perfect. So the feeler gauge is just dragging through the gap. That's where it should be. So that was about 30 thou, that one. I'll just clean them up, by the way. Other things disappeared. Here we go. I'll just use a wire brush to clean the ends up because they're quite oily. And obviously, because I've been doing that, just recheck the gap on it. The other thing, I mentioned it before, that is a compression washer. So you need to do the plugs up to about 20 foot-pounds. Don't go absolutely berserk on it. Do not get a breaker bar on it. You will strip the alloy thread in the cylinder head and then you will swear. So I'll pop that last plug in. Then I'm going to come, I think I'm going to put some lube in this and see if I can, because I can actually see some crap in the back here. I'm wondering if someone's actually bodged it to try and make it work. Possibly, but it ain't working. You are not wrong about the driver's seat diaphragm. That is just, there's just no connection at all between the front and the back of the seat. There should be some clips up here and they completely disappeared. There's one there. That's the remains of the diaphragm at the front. Now, I don't know if I've ever done this, but basically, I've done this, I don't know if I've ever videoed it. Basically, you have to undo a clip there, push the roll pin out, that frees up the height mechanism, undo 2 bolts down here, and there's 2 bolts at the back here as well. Sometimes, there they are, yeah, that's them down there. And then this whole frame comes off. Gives you access then to change the diaphragm. That's fairly typical. It's not unusual, as Tom Jones once said. Like that, frame's over there. It's got a couple of nuts and bolts on it, but it's in fairly good order. That's the remains of the diaphragm. Fucked. Completely detached at one end. The foam actually though, and the cover is in pretty good order. So I think it's just a case now putting the new diaphragm on. One trick that I do, because you can't really see what's going on down here, for the 2 holes either side, I tend to mark on the frame roughly where they are. Still needs a bit of feeling around and so forth, but you can find them at least. Otherwise you're chasing your ass around for a week trying to find out where the bloody holes are on the top of the side frames, and you think, ah, something. Then you end up taking the whole freaking cover off, which I'm trying to avoid here, but I can take the whole freaking cover off really just by pulling these clips off the front here and then just taking the whole foam off. I'll do that if I have any problems, but basically you have to kind of remove the pads at the back here. Excuse me, these little fellas. I have to excuse all the coughing, folks. It's like asthma's come on. I think it's possibly a little bit COVID-y. Well, I've not got the COVID anymore. That's gone. But no, asthma's not fun at the moment. Anyway, bollocks to all that. Let's have some fun here. The passenger seat is in no better condition, so you see the diaphragm is completely ripped across the front there. I did end up taking the cover off the other seat because it was just much less aggravation, and seeing as these straps are in really good order, I just knock the clips off, take the whole cover off. A bit like I did with the Range Rover ones, fairly straightforward. Let's put you on time lapse in a minute. I just need to talk to the customer, put you on time lapse, and we'll do this. So, distributor caps back on, put the new vacuum advance on, put the new distributor cap on that came from Distributor Doctor. and now I'm reconnecting these leads. Now, my top tip for these leads, because these things are often a pain in the arse. And the reason they're a pain in the arse is because these rubber caps on the end here, silicone caps I should say, they're not actually attached to the lead. So what I do, because some of them, you can see in this one, the contact is only about 2 centimetres in, that one's 3 centimetres in, so you don't actually know whether it's actually contacting on the plug or not. So let's take this one, which is cylinder 8. There, that was a good one. Little bit of the magic lube. I mean, this is a fast release penetrant, but you can actually use normal WD-40 and then just carefully twist and manipulate the outer silicone hose, and eventually it starts to move quite freely, like that. And out of the end comes the metal clip. Now you've got that, what you really need to do, and this was number 8, now you've got that, you can position the metal clip onto the plug. It should go with a nice satisfying click. Yeah, click, and then push the boot over the top of the plug, because the silicone allows it, or the silicone lube allows it to move up and down. So I'll do that with each of these. Similarly, you need to do it at the other end as well. So where we've got the cap over the end, again, all I do is put a bit of lube in there, start to twist it very carefully. You don't want to tear the cable or mess the cable up, and eventually it will start to move. When it does, there it goes. You can see the end. Position the end in, get your handy screwdriver, which is underneath the tripod, to push the contact right down inside the cap. He's in, and then pull the boot back over the top again. And it's just a case of doing each of those. Now, when it comes to the right angle ones, these ones, all I really do with those is just make sure that it feels like it clicks in. If it doesn't feel like it's clicked in, it comes off and it goes back again. And that's that. That's really it as far as ignition leads concerned. Because these silicone leads, they're very good, but obviously, you know, you never quite know whether it's actually contacted onto the plug or not. And it's not the first time I've kind of had issues with these things, and they become just a bit of a pain in the arse to make sure they fit. So that's all I really do. And you can see this one's coming apart quite easily. There's the metal contact at the end now already. La 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 la. It's actually caught underneath the edge of the rubber there. But there's enough of it there that I can actually feel that clipping on. This is number... oh, that's number 8. That's number 6, you silly arse. Just double check that. That's 8, this is 6. They've gone on there the wrong way around then, haven't they? Because what I try to do when I set these things up, that's how they were, you set them up so you've got 8, 6, 4, 2. Just as a visual kind of double check. And then I'll double check that I've put the leads on in the right order. Yeah, nice click. And then push the boot over the top. Piece of cake, eh? Right, and then the next one, this one should be 4. Well, it says nothing on it. Oh, there's a very faint 4 on there. Now, that was quite a long way down, and there's about 3 centimetres down. So, if you're pushing them all the kind of leads on, and you're thinking, yeah, it's gone on the same depth as that one, you're going to end up with a gap in between the spark plug and the HT lead. Far from ideal, folks. Oh, that was coming out nicely. 4, ready? On its click on, click, and then push the boot over the top. Like I say, normal WD-40 does this job. It's just a lubricant, really, that goes in there, penetrates, silicone friendly, doesn't cause a problem, evaporates off, and just allows you to manoeuvre these things into a position whereby Actually get the bloody things to fit. There we are. Right, this is number 2. Let's take that thing off there. Number 2. There we go. And then all I want to do then is gather these up. For some reason it's missing the clip over there. Now, the other thing I noticed on this, by the way, the rod here, it's the only one of these. I don't like this style of fixing. They're horrible. The hole inside is too small, so when you screw it onto the rod, they split. And I didn't have to touch that very hard in order for it to just kind of completely break off. So I've got to find another way of attaching the second throttle. That's not really going to be too much of a problem.